Time to elevate. You're running on empty with Matt and Tony.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Running on Empty. I'm Matt.
And I'm Tony.
And we are running on empty. And this week we've got a return guest. This is Robert Farmer, our Irish correspondent. And we're going to be talking with him about the state of COVID and basically the state of life in Ireland right now, as opposed to what's going on over here, just to get a different perspective on some things. So why don't we just jump right into it, eh?
Why don't we start talking about the pandemic? First of all, Robert, thank you for coming back.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, we know you don't represent all of Europe for us, but we appreciate getting the European perspective. So there's been some reporting that has there been somewhat of an uptick in cases in Ireland? Are you close to having another lockdown?
Yes, unfortunately. The situation over here is that we are currently well and truly into our third lockdown.
Wow.
Which it's gone to a stage now that a lot of people are getting that rebellious feeling.
Oh, yeah.
The restrictions at the beginning, the restrictions that were put out were accepted. The second lockdown, there were some similar restrictions, maybe in some cases not as severe, and in other cases they were, but again, they were accepted. But with this third lockdown, especially when it gets so frustrating, and I need to give you an example of what I mean. We, as the Irish people who live and reside in this country, are not allowed to travel beyond 5K from our residence. That is one of the things in the lockdown. But still, in the last month, from the 22nd of February right up until the 19th of March, within that time frame, 22,000 people came into this country for no specific reason other than holiday. And when you have an Irish person that if you travel beyond 5K are stopped by the local police and asked the question that everybody asked, what is the purpose of your journey? If you say, unless it's a specified journey, whether it's a hospital visit or things like that, if you say, oh, I'm just going for a spin to get out of the house, you're told to turn around or accept a fine. So when that happens, and then you hear that there are 22,000 people came in within a period of 4 weeks of non-essential travel, and 1,800 people, 1,800 people came in from two countries which are classed as a dangerous variant, one being Brazil and the other being South Africa. And they have come into this country and they're classed as fruit pickers, as an essential job. And that is the reason why they've come into this country. So when all of this is going on, and this is only one that a lot of people are getting frustrated with, that when all of this is going on, and then the government continually on a weekly basis come on national television or put out their standard press briefings and say things like, we know how you feel, we're in this together. It just gets so frustrating when these politicians are on anything from 90,000 to 180,000 a week, and people like ourselves are struggling and can't even go outside the house. Now, that is one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is that practically the whole country is shut down, from hairdressers to beauty therapists to construction to the pubs. And Ireland, as you know, is known for pubs, and our pubs and public houses and restaurants have been closed practically for the last 12 months, with an exception of a 3-week period at the end of August, start of September. So when this is going on, and as a result of that, these businesses then can't sustain their rent, their rates on these business. A lot of them have closed permanently and they will not reopen. We actually yesterday, there is a garden center. I don't know if you've got garden centers in the States. But this particular garden center, which is known nationally, the owner of the garden center yesterday, and it's been around for well over 40 or 50 years here, announced that it's now closing its doors because they can't sustain it. And
so there has been there has been an anti-lockdown movement, correct?
There has been, yeah. There've been a couple of marches, not just in Dublin, the capital city, but down here in Cork, the real capital of Ireland, as we like to say down here, and a lot of individual towns. There's been, I won't say a backlash, but a movement, I suppose would be the best way to put it, where you've had in Dublin now, unfortunately, the first one that they had up there, it turned a little bit violent because in a lot of these big cases, you will get a small minority that are specifically going out for violence. And if they can be weeded out, you can put up with the peaceful protests and you don't mind that.
Sure.
But where a lot of people who have been abiding by the rules over the last 10, 11, 12 months, are against these protests because these people are going along, standing side by side, refusing to wear masks, refusing to social distance. And it's like we're being pushed back down the ladder again, back to the very start. And then you've got the government corresponding with that. It's giving them fuel to add to their stories by saying, oh, we got to stay in lockdown now because the numbers are going up again. And it just gets so frustrating. So
Robert, just so we can put it in perspective, people, I think they've had about over 6,000 deaths from COVID. Where I live in Wisconsin, we've got about 5.8 million people. We've had over 6,000 deaths. So the Republic of Ireland, it's over 4 million people, right?
Yeah, about 4.3 million.
And how many deaths have there been? How many deaths have there been from COVID?
We've had bubbling under 4,500 deaths now at this stage.
Okay. So if you add, go ahead.
No, but that is high. I think that is high for the size of our country.
Yeah.
But having said that, this is where, if you believe conspiracy theories and things like this is where a lot of questions, I think, from our side have to be asked. I mean, how many of these cases are deliberately associated with COVID, or would it be classed, or has the person an underlying condition, like, whether it's lung or heart or whatever, and COVID was just the straw that broke the camel's back? And I don't want to come across too bad when I say that, but the government are just taking these cases and saying, oh, it's a COVID death. It's a COVID death. And you'd question it, you'd wonder, because they're coming out and they're saying that the majority of deaths were over 70 or between 65 upwards. No young person, with the exception of the odd one or two, has severely got sick by this. So you would have to question a lot of what's going on. And there are very few people out there in the authority area that I think that we could trust that every answer they give is 100% true. You'd have to question it. And that's another frustration that sets in for us as well. We've got 2 national TV stations here in this country. And sometimes we feel the main one, which is called RTE, is subsidized by the state. So you'd wonder where or how far these people can be when it comes to asking the serious questions and really scrutinize the politicians. Yeah. The other station then, unfortunately, doesn't have enough money to hire the good journalist to ask those questions. So we're left in a little bit of a limbo when it comes to that. So that's where the frustration sets in over here. And then when you hear of Europe, if you want to go further afield, that it's looking like Germany might go back into a part-time lockdown again. Paris might, France, Belgium, so you'd wonder, with these cases, would it be the same that a lot of the deaths that is happening over there, is it because the countries are not closing down the airports? They're allowing these other so-called stronger variants to come in, and that's the reason why the cases are going up, because by what people are saying, the variants are easily transmitted more so than the original COVID virus that came out. You could just walk past somebody. And that brings another thing. We have a lot of people out here and they're jogging. They go out and they try to have exercises, but they're jogging and they're sweating and they're not wearing masks and they run past people. And you know what I mean? So like if you're going to lock down, you should lock down, lock down a county, allow people to go within their own county, close the airports for a short period of time. And the prime example of it working is New Zealand. If you look at what they did over there, it worked. People still lived their lives in their own country. They still went to their hairdressers. They still went to the restaurants. They still went to their cafes, but they stayed within their own country and it worked. So why can't other countries take that on board?
Yeah, I just wish that, the powers that be would have the forethought. I mean, I understand there's some travel that's essential, but I guess the question, they call them fruit pickers. Isn't it winter over there? I mean, like, how much fruit could they be picking? You seriously? Seriously.
Well, it's big business over here. We're going into the strawberry season, pickers.
Yeah, okay.
And that's big over here. And again, see, this opens another can of worms, because the major fruit picker company in Ireland, the wife of the owner is, I believe, the sister-in-law removed of one of our senior politicians in the government. So there's,
of course,
like when you look at all of these things, you kind of say, hey, come on, guys. I mean, we didn't come down off the last shower. So
here we would already call it fruit picker gate. That would be like,
yeah. Jeez.
well, that is, no, I from what I've been saying now is Ireland related, in my opinion, Europe related. I know when you try to compare America to where you are, to the rest of us, I'm just fascinated that unfortunately, you've got a neither black or white system over there. It's the Republican Democrat. If a Republican said the sky is blue, or a Democrat said the sky is blue, a Republican obviously is going to say, no, it's not, it's black. You can see that, even though they know by looking up it's blue. So I'm fascinated by your politics over there and how it has turned its tide now that President Biden is taking the helm over Donald Trump, and how all the people that were against Donald Trump are now saying the exact same things against Biden, but it's reversed. I find that very fascinating.
There's a point to which, I mean, we've been for prior to Biden coming in, obviously we had 4 years of somebody who's on TV all the time. You just can't, I mean, social media, television, Instagram, Twitter, whatever. I mean, he's always there. So having a break from that's been great. I have intentionally not watched a whole lot of news because it's, I mean, over here, you've got your, your liberal media, you've got your conservative media, and very little quality media in between. I mean, there obviously is some out there, and we've interviewed a few of those folks for the show, but it's difficult to listen to it because everybody's got their sensationalistic spin that they put on it, and there's so much whataboutism. I don't know if that's a big deal over in Ireland when they're on a newscast or something, but over here, let's say, for example, they'll tease you with some big thing that says, okay, tonight we're going to talk about X, Y, and Z topic. And then they get in there, they say, okay, well, X, Y, and Z topic, but what about A, B, and C topic? And then the whole thing becomes about A, B, and C topic. And you're kind of like, all right, well, that was like a red herring. So I don't know, what is the media about the same? I mean, you obviously can, look at satellite and internet and stuff, and you can see a lot of it as well. But what's it like locally? I mean, is it a lot different? I mean, it doesn't seem like it because of the connections, obviously, but who knows?
It's not, to be honest with you, it's not that quite different to what you have. It's just of a smaller scale because of the size of our country. There's an awful lot of spin that goes on over here. And if, for example, and I'll give an example of what I've seen from the American side in a second over one or two clips over the last couple of days. But from an Irish perspective, if a politician came straight out and said to a camera, the sky is blue, okay? And then about a week later, and that's now on film and it's there and it's in the archives. And then a week later, they tried to put a little spin on it and saying, well, I didn't actually say it was blue. It was slightly gray. But then the person who's interviewing will bring out the clip and say, no, you said the sky is blue. And then the politician would try to spin on what they said, even though we can see what they say. And this is going on quite a lot. And I think that this must be politics worldwide. And then you see what happens over here in Ireland. And it's the same of a smaller scale, as I said before, but it's the same scenario. It's the same spin that's used. I think it must be a politician school that when somebody decides to become a politician, they go in and they're given a manual. You do this, you do that, you learn this, you learn that. Here's your money at the end of the week, and they'll go home.
Sure.
You know, it is so frustrating.
The question is, prior to Donald Trump becoming president, do you think you saw as much of that? I mean, obviously it existed in all forms of politics, but he kind of blew the lid off of that type of rhetoric, if you will. Like, here's a question. Oh, no, I never said that. Well, here's the video evidence. It's fake, you know. But I mean, it seems like a lot more people are doing that on both sides of the fence right now.
Well, they are. I firmly believe that. I mean, pre-Donald Trump, it just wasn't as blatant, I don't think. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind was the weapons of mass destruction, you know, way back in the day. I mean, who was that? Was that the Republican Party? It was President Bush, I think.
Yeah,
you know. And as it turned out, it wasn't. You know, none were found, but still, you know, there was a twist there, but it wasn't as blatant as what Trump is doing. And I think that's the only difference in American politics. And I think it's the only difference in politics generally worldwide. I can't comment too much about what happens in France and Germany when you see all these leaders talking. But again, you know, we saw a lot of spin when it was going on about England, the UK leaving Europe, and they called it Brexit. And you'd see all these politicians giving their speeches as to why it's good for the UK, why it's not good for the UK. And the first one that comes to mind is, I don't know if you ever heard of a guy called Nigel Farage, who was part of a UKIP party, he called it. I mean, they gave the biggest spin of all. You know, they even plastered a slogan on the side of a bus before the election saying that if you don't vote to get out of Europe, everybody is going to be caught for 350 English pounds a month. You know, regarding payments and taxes and things like that, which is a pure and utter falsity. And it was proven that it was false. And when Nigel Farage, after the UK voted for Brexit, when he was asked that question, he laughed it off. So the spin continues worldwide. You know, it's the exact same no matter where you go. And unfortunately, I don't think there are enough people strong enough who want to tell the truth, who want to live properly, who want to cater for the small guy, the middle guy, you know, and even the larger guy. You know, there's not enough of us out there to create that bond that we could push the old-fashioned politics to one side and try to, you know, make countries run properly. And we're all, like, realistically, we should all be in this together. We should be all scratching each other's backs.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
there should be no such thing as a first world, second world, third world country. It's all over the place. You know,
Robert, let's go back. Let's go back to Joe Biden for a second.
Okay.
He identifies as an Irish Catholic.
Yes, he does. Yeah.
Was his election greeted by a lot of people with some glee over in Ireland?
Yeah, if I had to pick a percentage, I would say that you're talking at least maybe 95% of the Irish people were delighted that Joe Biden got in, because off the top of my head, I think it was around County Louth is where his ancestral heritage comes from. Now, that would be, if you're looking at the map of Ireland as a crow looking down on top of the country, it would be close to Dublin. It's over in the Midlands, slightly right. Is where he came from. And I think he's about maybe 4 or 5 generations removed, he himself. But obviously I had to laugh when his ancestral name is a true Irish name, Finnegan.
Right.
You know, I mean, how Irish can you get with a name like Finnegan? It's like something you'd see in The Quiet Man with John Wayne back in the day when they made that movie. And so the majority of Irish people were delighted that Joe Biden got in. Firstly, I think a lot of us were surprised that he was nominated. I mean, this is a whole different question, obviously, but how he was nominated firstly by the Democrats, I think, was a surprise to a lot of people, because there could have been a lot younger and stronger people that would have made a bigger impact. But the fact that he got in there and he got through and he beat Trump, yes, we're delighted for that, you know, and we're delighted the fact that he is, I don't know, is it 4% or 4/8 or 5/8 Irish?
Yeah,
something
so
like that.
He's a little bit more Irish than he is American, maybe. I don't know.
That's all right.
Where's his birth cert? Where's his birth cert?
Oh, yeah.
Get it out. So,
But what does Ireland want from the United States? I mean, as a practical matter, I mean, I know Donald Trump was not popular across Europe, but in your view, what kind of policy change would Ireland and maybe even other European countries like to see from the United States? Is it more support for NATO, or what else?
yes. Again, these are only all my personal opinions. I mean, I can't speak for the powers that be, unfortunately. But what we want from America, because for a long time, and I think it was self-proclaimed by yourselves, that America is the most powerful country in the world. You know, I mean, you hear that in a lot of movies, you hear that in a lot of talk all the time. And when Trump came on board, he killed all of that. You know, I mean, America was respected around the world. The majority of America and American people were respected around the world pre-Donald Trump. But he made such a dent in all of that. I think the majority of people, again, especially here in Ireland, want to see that renewed. We want to see kind of an open door policy that America has always allowed. And if America could get back to that, rather than to have this shut the door in your face, it should be the other way around. It should be ask all the questions you need to ask. If you pass all the criteria, yes, come into this country. America used to have that. Everybody used to believe it. And I think that's what they want from the Biden administration, to get back to that situation. Because a lot of the Irish, especially, because as you know yourself, Ireland have traveled all over the world. You know, you'll find Irish culture in a lot of places around the world. And America is predominantly one of those. It's great to know that now there's a guy back in charge of such a nation that will allow that to happen again. You know, and it's just a great feeling, and it's also a great feeling to know that he's part Irish.
That's awesome. Well, obviously, you've heard some of the bad news that's happened here in Colorado in the last couple of days. And,
yes.
It's been. And thank you, by the way, for playing that song on your show the other day. For those folks that haven't listened to it, Robert runs a radio show on it's an internet radio show called First Dance FM, and the website is firstdancefm.ie. And on Tuesdays and Thursdays, he has a show called The Love Zone, which it's a wedding-based, wedding theme show for a couple hours every Tuesday and Thursday, and some really awesome features and whatnot. But we were talking, the other day about this, and you played a special request in honor of the 10 people that lost their lives at that. Guns are obviously a problem here in the United States, and depending on who you talk to and talk with, some people say they are, and some people say they're not. What's it like in Ireland with regards to guns? What's Ireland's standpoint? What do you think a citizen's standpoint is on guns?
Well, guns are illegal over here. You're not allowed to have a gun.
Wow.
The only time that you can apply for a gun license and the type of gun that you receive is a shotgun, and that's only based on the hunting aspect. When we say hunting, we're talking about like we don't have many wild animals over here. If you're not talking about politicians, but regarding the hunting, it's of deer, of rabbits, hares, things like that. But there are only specified seasons that you can do that. Not so much deer anymore, because deer are protected species now. So it's illegal over here. And I mentioned to you earlier on as well, even our police force, the majority of our police force over here do not have guns. Wow. They have batons and they have got mace and spray and things like that, but they don't have guns. But there's a small segment of the police force that we call the armed police. We call them Gardaí over here, because that is the Irish for police. So with the Gardaí and the Garda, there is a small section that are armed, and even the jeeps and the cars that they travel in, if they're armed, it has to say it on the side of the car. So it would say armed Gardaí or armed patrol or stuff like that. But the majority are not, because guns are illegal. Now, that's not to say that you can't get them in the black market, because unfortunately, like any country, you do have a seedy side, and there's an underground element to all of that. But overall, if I was driving down the road and I was stopped at a guard checkpoint and I happened to have a gun, I'm not just questioned about it, but I'm arrested and I'm taken
Wow.
out, and questioned in the station as to why I have a gun. And you could get jail time, obviously.
Wow.
So yeah, that's our situation over here in the Republic of Ireland. Of course, you probably know that Northern Ireland is slightly different. Again, guns are illegal up there, but past history, there's slightly different elements to come with guns up there. So that's my answer to that.
Yeah.
You mentioned.
Our political system here is, you've kind of suggested this in your remarks today. Our system is so paralyzed that it is impossible to get support even for things that 95% of the population support, like universal background check. We can't even have that when everyone supports it. So I suppose our politicians would rather have everyone just live in fear. I mean, every time you go to a movie theater or a grocery store, you have to literally worry that someone is going to pull out a gun. And the answer to that cannot be, okay, well then get your own gun and be prepared to defend yourself.
Right.
Because that's not practical and that will not work.
Unfortunately, in the town that we live in, I mean, I'm not a huge gun fan at all. We have them and we are protected. And, because of yesterday's, because of the thing that happened in Boulder, now there's a lot of people talking like, okay, well, this concealed carry, like had somebody had a concealed carry in the shop and wasn't one of the first, people hit, would they have been able to make a difference and save some lives? That's up in the air and subject to speculation. But I do understand why people want to want to protect themselves. I don't see the government taking away stuff, but I mean, there's certain guns that just I don't think belong in people's hands. I mean, I don't know why anybody would need to go hunting with an AR-15. Granted, I've shot one before and for target practice and things. And if you're military, I get it. But for hunting and just like casual use, it just doesn't make any sense. I keep wanting to go back to the Constitution and say, okay, if you want to uphold the Constitution, let me give you a musket. And let's play by these rules when this document was written. But that's probably a discussion for a whole nother show.
But anyway. See, again, from a European perspective, and especially Ireland, because we don't have guns that are legal here, I can't understand how politicians can't come together and still allow guns if you want. I mean, as I say here, you can get a shotgun here if you're a hunter and you want to apply for a license. But if you apply for a license, you're scrutinized and, what's your mental state, what's your history, what's your background, all of these things before you can get it. And that's just for a shotgun. Like when we saw what happened over there on the 6th of January, and to see groups of people outside your Capitol Hill, and they're standing there trying to be members of the Die Hard movie and all these tough actor kind of movies that you'd see. And they're standing there with these machine guns that should be only allowed in the military, nowhere else. I mean, what is the point of it? I just don't understand it.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, Robert, because for people who say that gun laws don't work, January 6th is a great example of how they do. Washington, D.C. has some of the toughest gun laws in the country. And were those laws not in place, I think that it's safe to say that would have been a whole scale massacre on January 6th. Right.
Yeah, but based on that, Tony, how come a person is allowed to travel to an event like that? A member of the public now, okay, that is allowed to travel to an event like that, carrying a machine gun over their person, wearing vests, and these belts with bullets in them, having the bulletproof vests on and in full military kit, and they're not a military person. How is that allowed, and why is that allowed? This is what we can't understand. If we did that here, we'd be hauled off straight away and thrown into a cell and asked questions later. So why is it being allowed there? In mass, mind you, not just the one or two individuals, but the pictures that we saw over here, it was phenomenal. Forget about the guys breaking the windows with clubs and pieces of bars, But the people that were storming that building with guns, wasn't there a couple of people on the Senate floor or the Capitol, one of the floors, I don't know which one it was, standing up where all these votes are passed with machine guns hanging over their shoulders, you know? It was not the case in a couple of those images. So why is that allowed? Yes, I understand gun laws and they should be in place, but why is it allowed that these guns, you can walk into a shop and you can buy a gun over the counter without any background checks? If you have to register to vote in your country, I believe you're going to be scrutinized. Where you're from, where were you born? What color is your skin? All of these things.
Well, the most atrocious example of what you're talking about was what happened in Atlanta a couple of weeks ago, where the 21-year-old man who killed, what was it, Matt? 8 people, most of them Asian.
Yeah, 8 people.
He had actually purchased the gun that day, right? The same day.
There you go. That's the prime example.
Yeah. That's absurd, right? Not even any waiting period.
But ironically, in Georgia, you can't register to vote and vote on the same day.
Right.
That's not allowed. I don't understand that at all. I mean, like they're really, and now they're trying to, and this, I could go on for this forever, but they're trying to suppress the vote even more in Georgia because of whatever reasons they think they are. But it's
because the wrong side won.
The wrong side won, so we need to cheat now.
Yeah.
We need to prevent the other side from voting so we can win. But well, I mean, this could probably be a very long conversation, and we could probably go on, especially if we had like a Guinness in our hand. We could probably talk about this forever and a day. This, by the way, this might become the new series of pubs. I think we could probably start like a Zoom gastropub is what we could do. But no, we're just about out of time. Any closing remarks or questions, Tony?
Yeah, just on a lighter note, Robert, when you in Ireland look at like what's going on in the UK with all the absurdity with the royal family, do people in Ireland, do you guys like mock the royal family, or I guess it's like how do you guys look at it? Because to me it's so absurd that there still is something called a royal family, and that millions of people, including over here, will just, the highest ratings on television will be interviews with, people who claim to reject the royal family, but will still use the title of it and make all kinds of money from it. It's so ridiculous. How do the Irish look at the so-called royal family?
Well, that is something that I would say it's kind of split down the middle. It's 50-50. From an Irish perspective, you either like them or you don't like them. I personally, I wouldn't lose any sleep if I never saw an interview of a royal member. Now, having said that, I've nothing against them, okay? But you must realize Ireland was under English rule for a long time. So there's a lot of history there. And recently, actually, I saw a clip of one of these political talk shows where there would be a panel in front of a live studio audience. This is pre-COVID now, but I only saw the clip recently. I think it's on YouTube somewhere. And as far as I know, it was the American ambassador to London at the time was on the panel. And somebody made a remark regarding the effect of Brexit with the Northern Irish border, the fact that Northern Ireland is still under English rule, the Republic of Ireland is not. And she came out, and again, I'm only paraphrasing, but she came out saying, don't underestimate the Irish. You got to understand where they were coming from. The English had too much hold over them, and that they had fought for their freedom, and their freedom was given to them back in the 16 Rising, which we didn't actually get till close to 1950 odd, but that's another story and another conversation. So when you hear of that, Ireland is very independent. So a lot of the views of the Irish against the royal family, a lot of the views would be coming out of feelings that the Irish would have as to, hey, we were suppressed by you for a long period of time. Why should we support you? And more importantly, why should we support the royal family? So that is why you'd get a lot of people here, about that interview. I think, was it Oprah did the interview?
Yes.
And, they would say, yeah, so what? They would agree with Piers Morgan. Some people wouldn't agree with him, saying that, Meghan Markle is talking a load of BS or whatever. But when you see, I don't know if he's still a prince, obviously, but when you see him now, an unemployed prince, he's recently got a job, and he's now going to be working for a CEO regarding mental health and all of this kind of stuff, which is pretty good. But he's like an ordinary Joe Soap, So more power to the guy for getting a job, making a few bob, and somebody has to pay for his $14 million house that he's living in, So
I think that when Queen Elizabeth II passes away, and I guess her son Prince Charles will become the king, right?
Oh, he can't wait for it. He has been screaming for that.
I think that guy is so. I think that guy is so inept. That will be the end of the British royalty, in my view. It will end with King Charles.
It will depend. You see, because William will be next in line after Charles. William is the ideal king, so it will depend. Charles could turn around and say, "No, I am going to skip the throne," and it will automatically go to his son William. And if that happens, you're going to see a stronger royal family, I think, than ever. If Charles gets it, it'll be like Trump becoming president, I think. I think he's going to ruin it completely.
But I mean, they have very formal power, right? I just can't believe that the majority of the people in the UK just don't see them as like the ultimate leeches on society, right?
No, because the majority of the UK people are like the Republican Party. They can't see any wrong in them.
Yeah, I suppose.
Wow.
When you think about it, I mean, they lived and breathed the royal family all their lives. So in their eyes, that is key, So, but from an Irish perspective, I think you'll have a lot more Irish that don't care about the royal family than you will have from the Irish.
Yeah,
that's my own personal view.
Sure.
I personally, if the royal family want to go out and live out in Barbados somewhere and pack up and leave, so be it. Off you go. I won't.
Well, I think that's a good way to wrap this up. Thank you so much, Robert, for your time and your insight.
You're very welcome.
It's always good to get a perspective that's not from our own country here, just to kind of see how other folks see us. And I'm just happy that with all the crap that's happened over the last 4 years with our government, that we're still friends. I mean, that's a good thing.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much to both of you. And it's great. I know this is audio for people who will be tuned in on YouTube, but I'm looking at the two of you, and I suppose The Odd Couple comes to mind.
Wow.
That was a great series. I used to love that, actually.
Oh, I love this too.
Okay, so who's Oscar and who's Felix? Choose your words carefully, my friend.
Felix was the neat one, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Tony, I'm going to put you in the Felix category, I think.
Yeah. Although my wife wouldn't accept the neat part. In fact, she just told me to clean this office today.
Actually, speaking of your wife, Tony, I believe she's involved in an election at the moment, so I'd like to wish her well on behalf of the Irish people.
Yes, April 6th. April 6th is election day.
Yeah, so I hope she does well, and we'll keep our fingers crossed, and we'll send the luck of the Irish your way. Okay?
Oh, thank you so much. I'll tell her that.
Welcome.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
All right, Robert. Thank you so much. We'll talk with you soon, my friend. Take care. Hey, Tony, I really enjoyed today's interview, man. This was a lot of fun. I always love talking to Robert anyway, but I really love getting his insight.
I did too. And I really think it's great to get a perspective from someone who's over in Europe. But I was somewhat surprised that their pandemic situation sounds to be as bad as what we've had over here. I mean, just the impatience with lockdowns, the inconsistency of applying lockdown rules. I mean, I think history is going to show that Europe and the United States just had a lot of similarities in this, and they just, both of them did not handle it very well.
No, and I think a lot of what's going on is preventable. He said that, they're allowing all these people coming on in. I understand people need to come on in and have jobs, but, all of a sudden now you're running rampant with these variants, which we don't know a whole lot about yet. And again, situations that just were completely avoidable and preventable. Let people get back to normal, and then we'll figure out how to kind of reopen the borders and things like that. So I feel bad because his job is going out and entertaining and performing, much like mine. He does his in pubs, but with pubs closed, I still can't believe pubs are closed in Ireland. It just blows my mind. Like the joke used to be the Irish joke. Two Irish guys walked out of a bar. It could happen someday. Well, they haven't been able to go into bars. So, but it is. I do feel his frustrations. We have talks, offline and everything about, just kind of like, here's the rant of the day. And I know he could talk about this for hours, because there's a lot of frustration going on right now. Especially, he just wants to get back to work. He can't do anything right now because you can only go like 3 miles away from your house. But he just can't wait to, for things to start opening again. Luckily, that little lull that they had where they reopened everything, his daughter was able to get married during that time, and had a very socially distanced wedding. But so some things did happen. But yeah, I think we're all just jonesing to get back to work and back to normal.
Absolutely. Well, it'd be great to have him back regularly to give us that perspective.
Yeah. Absolutely. And as we were talking about some of the stuff with WRST, I realized that was offline, but I would love to have somebody on someday about radio. Have somebody talk about some radio and just, kind of the state of radio, where it was, where it went, and now where it is. And, kind of see some of the likes, dislikes, similarities, and differences from folks that are currently involved with it. So, but this was a fun show, man. Thanks so much for another great one. And for all of our listeners out there, please like, share, and subscribe. We thrive with you guys listening to us. And I realize there's only like 30 of you out there right now, but we're appreciative of that. We're very, very appreciative. So thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. And we will see you next time. Stay elevated.
Stay elevated.
Running on Empty with Matt and Tony.
And it's just a great feeling. And it's also a great feeling to know that he's part Irish.